Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe. Thanks for tuning in to Rosenfield 10, where I cover our beloved Bless You Boys in black and gold, the New Orleans Saints. If you are a Saints fan, you are part of the Who Dat Nation. You're part of the Who Dat family. That makes me a family member of yours. You can think of me as a coworker or a friend as well, who loves the Saints as much as you do. And when you see me, you say, "Hey, Joe, how about them Saints?" Well, I'm about to tell you what I think. Leave your comments down low. Let me know what you think about our Saints. Subscribe to my channel if you love the Saints. And today we are going to try to predict the 53-man roster for our Saints in 2025. Now, this is a pretty too early to tell prediction here, but I think we've got a lot to work with already. I think a lot of this team is already established. Now, I did a video talking about camp battles, and there's lots of moves that are yet to be made. We could sign players in the next couple of months and change some of the factors here. But as it stands right now, let's give it a shot. So, the majority of the team, I think, is already set. When I look at offense, defense, and special teams, yeah, there's a lot of questions, but there's a lot more, I think, concrete answers already given. So I'm going to start with special teams. Uh, whether the kicker is Blake Groupie or Charlie Smith is yet to be determined. I'm going to lean towards our incumbent, Blake Groupie. I think he was very accurate last year. You know, Charlie Smith has a great leg as far as strength goes. Both players kicked a 61-yarder in mini camp the other day. Blake Groupies would have been good from about 64 or 65 yards, and Charlie Smith's 61-yarder would have been good from 71 yards. Well, okay, if you look at it from that aspect, then you go ahead and just get the guy with the stronger leg, right? But I think Blake Groupie, when it's all said and done, is and still will be a way more accurate kicker than Smith. So I say you keep Smith. You've got that exempt roster spot on the practice squad anyway, and just keep him another year. I mean, Blake Groupie was very solid last year. He only missed 4 kicks. And how many times are you going to kick a 60-something yard field goal? It's just not that often. Leg strength is important, but I don't think it's the major deal with field goal kicking. You need accuracy. So I'm going to lean towards Blake Groupie as the kicker. The punter, same thing. It's got Matthew Hayball, the incumbent, versus Burnip, the new guy. Our coaching staff picked him as an undrafted guy. And I think skill wise, they're probably pretty equal. Maybe Burnip has a stronger leg. Um, he only averaged 45 yards a kick in college, but great high hanging kicks with no returns. So Hayball, it was one of the league leaders in pinning teams inside the 20 last year, but that average starting position was around the 18-yard line, and you could do a little better than that. So Hayball's also been the holder for Groupie all of last year, and hey, if Burnip can learn how to hold a ball, then maybe Burnip takes the job. I'm going to go ahead and say it's Burnip only because I think it's a wash and the coaching staff picked Burnip. So let's go ahead and put Burnip at punter. And then our long snapper is Zach Wood. That's not going to change. So your 3 special teamers, I'm predicting Blake Groupie and then Burnip at punter, Zach Wood at long snapper. So that's 3 of them out of your 53-man roster. So who are the other 50 players going to be? Well, let's take a look at the offense first, and we're going to focus on, I think, at first, who's definitely on the team for both offense and defense, and then the question marks and my final predictions. So offense first, let's pull that up. So on offense, now we're trying to get to 50 players because we've got our three special teamers. On offense, I've got 17 players written down right here, and I'm going to add another 9 to this, which is going to make a total of 26 players on offense, 24 players on defense. So I'm going up to 26 here, but right now we've got 17 players shown, and I think these are kind of set in stone. Tyler Shuck and Spencer Rattler at quarterback, Alvin Kamara, and I'm going to sneak in Devin Neal as a guy that's definitely going to make the team. I don't think he's ready to be a number 2 back. He might not be ready to be a number 3 back. He might be a guy who should be on the practice squad, but ends up being our number 4 running back and staying on the team. A lot of promise, and you don't want to lose him by waiving him and trying to get him on the practice squad. So I think it's just a sneaky thing. I think that the coaching staff picked him. They have faith in him. If he needs a couple of years to develop, I don't think they want to risk trying to put him on the practice squad for this to happen. So I'm going to etch in Devin Neal as our number 4 running back or number 3 running back. And we'll have to figure out the spaces there. At wide receiver, I'm etching in Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Brandon Cooks and Cedric Wilson. Now, I've seen a lot of people that cover the Saints say we might not want to keep a bunch of, veterans. Like, you want a guy like Brandon Cooks, you want a guy like Cedric Wilson, you want a guy like Donovan Peoples Jones, but do you keep all three of them when you've got all this youth that has potential? So the caveat here is I think Cooks is a guy that sticks on this roster because of his salary. I mean, it's not like we just signed him to a 1-year prove it deal or anything. We signed him to 2 years. We're paying him between 6 and 7 million a year. This coaching staff knew what they were getting when they signed Cooks. You've got a guy at Cooks. Now, whether that works out or not, I think it's going to cost us some money to just cut him. So I think that too factors in. And then on top of that, Cooks has been here all off season. So yeah, I think Brandon Cooks is etched in stone. So the number 4 guy being Cedric Wilson, that comes with a caveat. We're looking at different free agent wide receivers right now. We might take a look at Keenan Allen. We've already had Gabe Davis in here. And if we do sign another wide receiver, a free agent, going into training camp. Let's say we sign Gabe Davis. Well, then I think at that point, Cedric Wilson's job might be in jeopardy. Right now, to me, Cedric Wilson is the 6'2" guy who's a good run blocker, who's got that role in a Kellen Moore offense. Kellen Moore knows how to use him. But if we're looking at wide receivers and we bring in a guy like Gabe Davis, whose place does he take? I don't think he takes Brandon Cook's place. I think they're sold on what Brandon Cooks provides. You've got Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, and if any of them miss time, and they've both been known to miss time, then you got a nice replacement in Brandon Cooks, a guy that does the same thing Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed do. Bringing bringing a guy like Gabe Davis would mean you're taking the place of the things that Cedric Wilson does. So that's my caveat there. I've got Wilson etched in stone here as a top 17 offensive player, but yeah, free agency could change that. At tight end, I'm etching in Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau, and that's it. And we're going to have to add to this. And offensive line is pretty much set with Banks, Penning, McCoy, Ruiz, Fuanga, Landon Young, Dylan Reduns. You're going to have one more player. He's going to have to be a backup center. And I'm assuming that's going to be Clapp. So Now we're going to add the rest of the players who I'm predicting could make this team, and let's talk about it. So this is now going to be 26 players. Your emergency quarterback, Jake Hayner. I don't think that's going to change. I think Hayner's going to make the team. He's going to be participating in training camp in a month and a half, and I think he's going to look really good compared to Deckers. And I think Deckers is a guy that can make it on the practice squad. We can He can clear waivers and then just get on our practice squad. So Hayner will be our emergency third quarterback. Running back, I've got Kendre Miller and Clyde Edwards-Helaire etched in right here. Now, this is going to be interesting. Not only do we have Marcus Yarns and Holiday and Jones, all these running backs doing pretty good in camp so far, I think Kendre Miller is a guy that has just more physical ability. I think if you make that guy happen, you make it work, then you've got an overall better player. So it's Miller's job to lose, and he would have to really screw it up in the classroom and lining up and everything else for him to lose the job. But I'm pretty confident in Kendre Miller being number two. I just think he has more ability than the rest of them. Now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a totally different thing. I want a nice veteran guy. I don't think Devin Neal's going to be 100% ready to get in there and to assume a starting running back role right out of the gate as a sixth-round rookie. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a lot of experience in the league. But we're trying out Cam Akers at running back in camp right now, too. And there was, rumors that we were kicking the tires on other running backs. So what does that say? I think that says Clyde Edwards-Helaire is pretty good. We would like a veteran, a guy that can come in and start a couple of games if need be, but we can probably improve on Clyde. So let's say Cam Akers ends up making the team. He's going to take Clyde Edwards-Helaire's place. I think Devin Neal's etched in stone. And here's one more caveat. You need special teams players. And Velus Jones, who was a wide receiver and is playing running back for us, has some league experience, has a lot of experience as a kick returner. Do we want Rashid Shaheed to be our kick returner and punt returner? I don't think so. I think that it's an option. He's great at it, but there's a couple of players here that can do it, and you have to think about that. Velus Jones is a guy that could do it. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't all that, and we're willing to go in with Kendre Miller as our number two, and then some serious youth behind that, maybe Devin Neal is ready to be a number three, and Velus Jones can be that all important number four who is going to be used as a wide receiver and a running back and can return kicks and punts. I'm really seriously wanting to bump Neal up to number three, get rid of Edwards-Helaire altogether, and have Velus Jones as number four. But I got to see more from Neal in training camp before I make that decision. As it is right now, I'm going with Kamara, Miller, Edwards-Helaire, and Neal. And that kick returner is going to come in the form of Dante Pettis. So at wide receiver, like I said, if we don't get a Gabe Davis or a Keenan Allen to take Wilson's place, Wilson will be our number four. And then Bub Means and Dante Pettis would be five and six. Everybody expects Bub Means to turn this corner and be a factor. It would be really nice if we were looking at number three wide receiver and having, a big body guy who's producing very well. Bub Means wants to assume that role, so got a lot of faith in him. Dante Pettis, however, is a kick returner and a punt returner. And yeah, I think if you're not keeping Velus Jones at running back, then you're going to need a kick returner and a punt returner. I think we have a lot of questions at running back. So this is my tentative list at wide receiver. Olave Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, Cedric Wilson, Bub Means, and the all-important kick returner, punt returner, Dante Pettis. That's what I'm going with right now. We get Gabe Davis. He can take the place of Wilson. So I'm giving you all of these caveats, even though I'm showing you a final 53-man roster prediction. It's so early to tell. At tight end, Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau are etched in there. No problem. And I want to believe Taysom Hill's going to be healthy at 35 years old. He's still going to be productive, and we need a spot for him if he's going to be on this roster. And he's going to assume all kinds of roles if he's healthy and back. Uh, it seems like Kellen Moore's even interested in playing Hill at quarterback to utilize, the strength of him running the ball and the option to pass. And Moore's mentioned it. He's mentioned Taysom Hill's quarterbacking ability as one of the overall abilities the guy has. So I put him here as a tight end, but he can line up as a running back, a wide receiver, a quarterback, and everything else. So the only stipulation here is that Hill's not going to be ready probably for a while. If he does come, if he's successful, everything works out, you're still going to need somebody to take his place early on in the season. So your final four here are Johnson, Morrow, Hill, and Stahl. But I think Stahl's you're going to be your number three, and Hill's not going to be back for a minute. So that number four tight end's gotta be determined in preseason. This is what it'll eventually look like at tight end. But I think number four, I'm gonna go ahead and lean towards the rookie Matavao, just because number four tight end might be a healthy scratch every week anyway. And if this coaching staff drafted Matavao and they can put Holker or Jacobson on the practice squad, then they might just do that. They might just keep their guy on the active roster. Like I said, the number four tight end might be he might be a healthy scratch. It all depends. I think once Hill comes back, your number four tight end ain't going to be a healthy scratch because there's a place on this team for Stahl, and there's definitely a place on the team for Hill. So I'm kind of leaning towards Mataval being that number four guy early on. Dallin Holker might be a really hard guy to put through waivers to get on the practice squad, but Jacobson's lived on our practice squad, and so that's tight end. And then the last group here on offensive line, and this is the tricky one. We might just be fine with Will Clapp, and we don't need a ninth guy in Torricelli Simpkins. Simpkins is looking pretty impressive. He's a big guy. He can play guard and tackle, and Kellen Moore likes his big offensive linemen. So my problem with not keeping Nick Saldiveri, is Saldiveri has some center experience. So Shane Lemieux is a guy that was on our team last year that played guard and center, and Shane Lemieux is involved in the mini camp this week. I'm thinking that I would be, if I was going to keep a ninth offensive lineman, I would really like it to be an interior guy, a guy that can play center. Simpkins just seems really impressive, and out of all of the undrafted rookies that could make this team, I think Simpkins is a guy. Simpkins and the punter, Burnip, are the two undrafted guys that could seriously make this team. I just don't like that lack of depth at center. I imagine McCoy missing half the year and then Clapp having to be your center. And when Clapp goes down, you're pulling Hergel off the practice squad. And if you're willing to play Hergel, then yeah, fine. But they don't seem to want to play Hergel. We'll see what this coaching staff does. And then, like I said, Shane Lemieux. Shane Lemieux would be an interesting guy here instead of Simpkins. So that's something to look at. And also, like I said, you could just keep eight. Instead of having 26 players on offense, you'll have 25. You could put an additional player on defense. But overall, this is what I'm predicting the offense to look like. Let's take a look at the defense now. And I've got the same situation here on defense. 17 players etched in stone, and let's look at them to start with. There's one player missing from this etched in stone 17 player group here, and I'm building this up to 24 players. There's one person missing on the etched in stone, and that's Cameron Jordan. I just don't know where he belongs on this team. Yeah, he's been playing defensive end. He's been playing a lot of outside linebacker. He's an edge rusher, and he says he's 265, and he didn't really want to be in the middle of the defensive line last year when we were playing him at defensive tackle. He wanted to be on the edge. Well, if he plays defensive end in a 3-4, he's going to be essentially a defensive tackle. So, hi Snickers. Hey baby. So, and okay, so just put him at outside linebacker, fine. Well, I look at outside linebacker and I'm looking at players that are going to struggle to cover. Chase Young, Carl Granderson. You put Cam Jordan on that list, and all of a sudden you've got three guys that are true defensive ends that can't cover. I'm thinking this coaching staff might want to have a couple of linebackers that can cover. Is Cameron Jordan really going to be an odd man out when it's all said and done? I don't know. Let's look at who I've got etched in stone right now. At defensive tackle, Gottschall and Colin Saunders. And Saunders can play the defensive end position too. Brian Bresee, Nathan Shepard, Vernon Broughton as defensive ends. When it's all said and done, if Brian Bresee doesn't improve at run stopping, then he's only going to be on the field certain downs. Shepard and Broughton might be your starting defensive ends if Cam Jordan doesn't want to play it, and then Bresee comes in on pass downs. So that's where I'm at on the defensive line. I've got five guys that I think are shoe-ins. And we haven't seen a lot of Shepard. He's there for minicamp, but he wasn't there for OTAs. So Gottschall, Saunders, Shepard, Bresee, and Broughton. At linebacker, Chase Young, Carl Granderson. And like I said, Cam Jordan's probably your number 3 edge rusher. And then at inside linebacker, definitely Davis, Werner, and Stutzman. And then in the secondary, you've got Taylor, you've got McKinstry, you've got Yadam, you've got Quincy Riley, the draft pick. Then at safety, Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Reid, Jonas Sanker, the draft pick. All right, so what do we do here? Let's add the extra 7 players to bring this up to 24. I have them highlighted in yellow because these are the options. I've got your set in stone, and now these are your options. Jonah Williams as a defensive end. He can play the edge rusher role too. And he's been in this defense before under Brandon Staley. So I think Williams is a guy that's going to sneak in when it's all said and done. And I think Cam Jordan's going to make the team too. And there's some flexibility there. Jordan playing on the end or on the edge, and then Williams the same. Nefi Sewell, I feel like, is going to be that fourth linebacker. Stallbird's getting a lot of play. Jaylan Ford is familiar with a couple of our coaches, and so there's some options there, but I'm going to give the edge to Sewell. And then at the other outside linebacker spot, Fadil Diggs making it on this team. If you have a guy like Williams who can play end to end and outside linebacker slash edge, if Williams can also cover decently, then you're okay. I don't know if Diggs can cover or not. I'm terrified about our outside linebacker slash edge rusher situation. Chase Young in coverage wasn't able to keep up with our undrafted free agent running backs in training camp. I mean, in mini camp right now. Like every time Chase Young and Carl Granderson drop back to pass, they're getting smoked by backup running backs. So how do you think they're going to fare against guys like Bijan Robinson and the cat in Tampa Bay and everything else. So yeah, I'm kind of worried about the edge. As long as we're rushing the passer with these guys, yeah, I'm sure we'll be okay. But yeah, we got a long way to go to build this team to look good in this Brandon Staley defense. And is it even the defense we wanna keep after a couple of years if we're still struggling? Okay, we'll see. I think coverage is really going to come down to the secondary. The linebackers are going to struggle. The secondary is going to have to step it up. And I've got Ugo Amadi as the fifth cornerback, and I got Terrell Burgess as the fourth safety. That means Jordan Howden ain't on the team anymore. JT Gray's not on the team anymore. Who's going to be that fifth cornerback? Is Ugo Amadi really a cornerback? Well, I've got Amadi here because he's technically a nickelback, but he can also play safety. He can play on the outside, but he's our true nickelback, backup nickel to Alante Taylor. So I'm going to go with five cornerbacks, four safeties, and like I said before, if you keep eight offensive linemen instead of nine, then you'll have an extra player that you can put on defense to build them up to 25 players. And if that's the case, then that's an extra cornerback, an extra DB. Yeah, who's not on the team right now. So I would say Amadi would be your fifth safety, and then you're grabbing another cornerback who could possibly be Asante Samuel Jr. I'm thinking we go and get Asante Samuel Jr., add him to the roster right before free agency. Then Asante Samuel would be a cornerback opposite of McKinstry, and Taylor would be at the nickel. And you'd feel really comfortable about those three starters. And Ugo Madi would still be on the team. He'd be the nickel back and probably be listed as a safety. You make that move, you bring in Samuel and add that extra body, that 10th body to this DB room, and then you take away from the offensive line because nine is quite a bit for offensive linemen. All right, so there you go. That's my 53-man roster projection, prediction, and all of the caveats therein. You guys let me know what you think about this, and I'll probably be off, and anyone doing these will probably be off. There's a lot more time left to go before we determine that 53-man roster. We'll be watching them at the end of preseason and the beginning of the regular season. We'll see where we're at. And yeah, there's players that'll end up on the 53-man roster. It's not even on the team right now, as far as we know. But let me know what you think about where I'm going with this. Let me know what you would do different. I'm Joe. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos about the Saints. And until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Who dat?